news comes first. This is ABC-7 Extra.
Hello, it's Sunday, October 9, 2016. Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. I'm Josie Ortegon. Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. Now, for the next half hour, we'll be talking about traffic calming measures like speed humps and speed cushions. We'll explore what it takes to get them in your neighborhood and why some projects qualify and are funded and why others don't qualify. You can email us your comments and questions now to ABC7Extra at KVIA.com. You can also reach us at 915-496-1771. Tweet me at Josie Ortegon and use the hashtag ABC7Extra so we can find you. Now, it was on Tuesday when City Council voted to approve funding for some projects that have been on the waiting list for years. They're supposed to curb speeding like that.
They're good in a way because they used to travel here like a highway fast and now, but some people just don't care. They go over the bumps real fast. They don't care.
They're called speed cushions and are helping keep neighborhoods across El Paso safe. But the process to get them is rather lengthy.
And we have been waiting for years. We are desperate.
Long-awaited action that happened during Tuesday's City Council meeting. Residents one by one asking city reps to consider funding for speed cushion projects.
It is by pure luck that somebody has not been seriously injured or killed on our street.
The city's street and maintenance department requested more than $330,000 from City Council to fund speed humps for 22 streets. The list includes areas vetted through the city's neighborhood traffic management program. Created in 2008, the purpose is to provide some relief to neighborhoods that qualify.
Somebody wants speed humps or actually speed cushions is what we install. They have to go through our neighborhood traffic management program. They need to put in a request through a signed petition from the neighborhood. We want to make sure that there's community involvement. And what we'll do is we'll take the request, we'll go out to the street and study the street, and they have to meet some minimum qualifications in order to qualify for the program.
Though the projects that make the cut are technically a go, they're faced with the main hurdle, funding. The listed projects are for temporary solutions like speed cushions until funding for a permanent solution like speed bumps or roundabouts is created. But that can take even longer.
Give us the opportunity to address some of the speeding problems that we are experiencing out there. Give the city manager the opportunity that if we have any savings in general fund, that we can proceed and take care of this until we council, give us additional funding to go and do the more robust type of traffic calming that we can do.
But some city reps went back and forth about approving the funding.
If we're going to spend that money, I think we have to look back at all the lists that we had and see which one really deserves our attention. Is it the speed humps or is it one of those others that we were discussing? And until that discussion happens, I don't think we can do this.
I'm advocating for the people who don't want to wait for us to come up with $1 million to put a roundabout in because they can't live on their streets right now because of the speeding.
While there's no real answer if the wait for a solution will change, the need for one in most cases is.
When the community submits a petition, they get the signatures, they do everything that they need. They are really convinced that this is the best solution for safety, for speeding.
And joining us now is Justin Bass, the City of El Paso's lead planner for the Streets and Maintenance Department. Again, thank you for joining us tonight on a Sunday night. We really appreciate it. But let's begin by talking about the Neighborhood Traffic Management Program, because in order for projects to get funding, they need to qualify for the program, correct?
Correct. Our projects or our program is pretty easy to apply for. All you have to do is either contact 311 or go to the city website and find the application online. You print it out, and from there you actually go back, fill it out. It's pretty simple. You identify who you are and how we can get in contact with you, because we always need a neighborhood representative to start the process off. Then you describe the street and the limits, what the problems are you're experiencing and when you're experiencing them. And then the most important part of the application is actually to go out and get signatures from 2/3 of your neighbors. And what that's telling us is it's just not one person who has a concern, that there's a general consensus in the neighborhood that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. From there, once we receive the completed application, we actually schedule it for a traffic study, and if you qualify for the program or you qualify based on the traffic study, then we put you on the list and rank you. And then once funding becomes available, then we start working with your neighborhood on the best way to calm traffic in your neighborhood.
Okay, and exactly, I mean, what kind of problems does the program try to resolve?
Really, the main things we're trying to solve are speeding trends in neighborhoods and shortcutting traffic.
Okay, tell me a little bit about the funding, because I think that was the biggest issue that we saw this week. A couple of the projects had been on the waiting list for years, and that funding is crucial essentially to start the project. So they're vetted. These projects are vetted, correct? What does that vetting process entail?
Well, the vetting process. Well, let me talk about the funding, I guess,
okay.
more importantly. The funding is, as we've gone through the years on this program, the program is really designed to do robust improvements like traffic circles and curb extensions and medians, very aesthetic things for neighborhoods. The problem we've run into is those things typically cost a lot of money. And speed cushions cost a lot less. But the way the program's designed, it's really designed to solve problems in neighborhoods with these robust improvements, but it costs a lot of money to do them. So what we've had is we have projects come through that qualify that cost a lot of money to complete them, and then we're not able to get to other ones on the list. So what's resulted is we have a list with 22 projects, as was discussed in the story earlier, that we actually don't have money for right now identified to complete the project. So what we've done is we've come before City Council and asked them for additional monies to be able to go out and do temporary solutions in those neighborhoods, which includes speed cushions, to at least give immediate resolution to the neighbors so they feel safer in their neighborhoods.
Okay, now what type of streets qualify for the program? So there has to be, there are some qualifications obviously in order for a project to get funded. Tell me a little bit about that.
What type of streets? We focus on residential streets, local streets, collectors, what are called collectors. Basically, collectors collect all the traffic from those local streets and distribute them to the higher arterial streets that usually have multiple lanes of traffic. So that's what we're really looking for. That's why it's kind of focuses on neighborhoods and neighborhood traffic management program.
Okay, and how long does the study take to determine if the project qualifies for the program?
Once someone submits a completed application, we automatically schedule it for a study. Now keep in mind, we do all kinds of studies. We study for stop signs, we study major arterial streets, we do all kinds of different studies. So we just put it into the queue, and that can range anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to be able to complete that study.
Okay, and something important to note, the studies are usually done during the school session because you need to determine or just observe the patterns.
Right. The reason we do it during the school session is that's actually your better chance of being able to qualify based on what we're looking for in the studies. So if you submit one in May or June, we're going to have to wait generally until September to be able to conduct a study.
Okay, so let's take a closer look at those projects. The city has received 447 applications since the program's inception. Now, only 100 have qualified in almost a decade, and between 3 to 6 projects qualify a year, typically, around that number. But how exactly are these projects prioritized?
We actually have a ranking list that's within the NTMP policy that we follow. We're looking not only at speed and volume, but we also look at the number of speed-related collisions that have happened on that street. That helps rank the project as well. And we also look at pedestrian-generated uses like parks and schools, things that put more pedestrians and cyclists on the street that might be at a higher risk when you have a lot of speeding on the street.
Okay, so there are a number of issues or factors that you take into
Correct.
account when determining. And what we saw last Tuesday was that some of the projects had been on the waiting list for years, and then some were moved up at some point, and that's the queue that you're mentioning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what happens there is the way we rank the projects is every time we get a new project, we rank it. So if it has, say, more speed-related collisions, it might actually go higher on the list than a project that's been there since 2008. And so a project from 2008 may unfortunately get stuck lower on the ranking because there are other projects that come in above it.
Okay, so this actually brings me to my next question. What happens when a project doesn't qualify? Because we saw tonight a story about a family in Northeast El Paso. Cars have crashed into their property for just a couple of decades now, ever since they lived on that street. And the street is Menzies and Sun Valley Drive. A truck crashed into their home last week and narrowly missing them. And then they've been staying in an RV on their property as their home is being repaired. And just this morning, a car crashed into the property. So that's the second time in 8 days. And they say that this has happened actually over the past couple of decades. And we're actually going to hear from that homeowner right now.
He says there's a sign down the road that says there's a curve, there's a street light, and there is a guardrail. Therefore, they have no responsibility. They've done everything they can. That's what the city's stance is.
The street is equipped
Okay,
with
so we're going to take a
posts
closer
and
look at that
guards.
road. This is video of it. It's a curve that residents are concerned about that you see here. And they actually call it Dead Man's Curve. The street does have wooden posts and guards, but that obviously hasn't stopped cars from barreling into their properties. Residents say they've been begging for streets, or stop signs rather, and speed bumps. And the problem is that it's a 4-lane road. So that's exactly what you've been talking about. But if they've applied for the project and there have been collisions there in the past, why haven't they qualified for the project?
Well, again, the NTMP focuses on residential streets. This is an arterial street, a much larger street. Those streets have to be treated somewhat differently. And the program, again, was focused on these residential streets within residential neighborhoods. An arterial street is specifically designed to carry higher volumes of traffic at typically higher speeds. And what we've seen in the past, if you don't do it, if you don't correct that properly, if you don't calm traffic properly in arterial, say you do put a speed cushion on the street, you run the risk of actually pushing that traffic into residential neighborhoods. People are like water, we take the path of least resistance. So instead of going down that speed cushion, people will find alternative routes through the neighborhoods, and then you have a problem for those residential neighborhoods. So we have to look at arterials in a very case-by-case basis. We are looking at this one right now, waiting to get all the data in from all the different accidents. That way we can make sure that when we do some additional solutions, that it's the right solutions for that particular location.
Okay, and we actually did hear from Carl Robinson, who represents that area. He did say he would be speaking with the Streets and Maintenance Department, but there are other people who may not necessarily, not that we've heard of other houses or homes or properties that have had the same issue, but they just don't qualify for the program. What sort of relief do they have to prove that there is a problem?
Well, if they don't qualify for the program, it means that when we went out and did the study, that we didn't find that speeding was at a significant level compared to other streets that we've had to do. And these numbers, the thresholds that we put into the program are ones that we vetted with the consultant who designed the program and with city staff, that these are the thresholds. We have to draw the line somewhere. But what we can do, we can definitely go out and talk to those communities, have educational meetings on how to maybe do community policing to calm traffic. And also you can always reach out to your local police department to be able to do some additional enforcement as well. And I'd also note that if you don't qualify in any particular year, you can actually reapply the next year or the year after that. Trends do change over time, so you may not be able to qualify this year, but you may be able to qualify next year.
Okay, and in this case, there may be a solution after all these years.
On the Sun Valley situation, we are looking at it and looking at ways to be able to better improve that intersection.
Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us. When we come back, we are going to talk about the logistics and numbers in terms of comparisons to other traffic calming measures. If you'd like to share your comments or if you have any questions for one of our guests, you can call our comment line at 496-1771. If you're online right now, you can email us now to ABC-7 Extra at KVIA.com. You can tweet me at Josie Ortegon and use the hashtag ABC-7 Extra. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, where news comes first. For speed cushions run for about $4,500 for each one. Traffic circles run between $40,000 to $50,000 a piece, and curb extensions between $25,000 to $35,000, and medians typically $10,000 to $25,000. So it's a little expensive, first of all, for a traffic calming measure. Is there a reason why speed cushions are chosen instead of traffic circles or curb extensions or medians?
Well, typically the way the program is really designed, it is designed to focus on those more robust improvements first. They are best practices around the country. They also tend to increase the aesthetic value of a neighborhood. So those are the ones, and they're less aggressive too, because speed cushions you have to drive over. Some people are worried about their front end being misaligned, where you don't have to worry about that with the other improvements.
Okay, in terms of durability, how long do speed cushions last? Because that's what we're really seeing with these projects, especially the ones that we saw last week that were approved. Those streets will get speed cushions.
Correct. These are newer ones we haven't been using for many years, but from what we've been told by the manufacturer, they can last for 10 years plus. Plus we do additional maintenance all the time on them, so if there is a piece that comes undone, we can definitely go back out there and fix that and increase the lifespan of it.
Okay, now let's talk about the differences between each one, because I've heard different terms being sort of thrown around: speed bumps, speed humps, and speed cushions. What are the main differences between each?
Okay, the simple difference between them is we only use speed cushions nowadays. So what you see is the 7x6 large pieces. They usually have spaces between them to serve for emergency service purposes. We don't want to slow down response time, so that's why we use those type. Speed humps are what we used to use, and those are the long continuous type. You can still see some throughout the city. Speed bumps are what you find in retail establishments. They're typically even taller, about 6 inches. They're really there to pretty much stop traffic, because you have a lot of pedestrian traffic going across from a parking lot to a storefront.
And the speed cushions accommodate emergency vehicles.
Correct.
Because they have those slits in between.
Exactly.
Okay, well, we actually have a call from a viewer, I believe, that we're going to take right now.
And I always remember, and I'll tell my community groups, I'll always tell them, you know what? I learned something from Ted Marquez very early on. He said the #1 request of residents is, we want speed cushions. And the #2 is, we want them out.
And the speed humps have a lot of negative, after effects. You know, you have a lot of noise when a car goes over that speed hump, and someone's going to have it installed in front of their house. So, you know, they're going to have to live with that noise, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. And some people are very light sleepers. You hear screeching tires.
And something that you mentioned earlier, Justin, is just the fact that, when someone does apply for the program, they need to get a petition going. And that's
Correct.
really to sort of prevent that, is to make sure that everyone on the block is okay with having speed cushions, because, like you just heard, they tend to make a lot of noise.
Correct. That's very true. There is a process if you want to remove them that you can go through. It's kind of a reverse process of what we do to install traffic calming, but we try to avoid that by doing the outreach to the neighborhoods and getting the application obviously from the neighborhoods. But for speed cushions specifically, we go one step further. We actually have property owners directly abutting where we're going to put a speed cushion, actually sign an acknowledgement so they understand that it's being installed in front of their property.
So would it necessarily be to take them out completely, but to relocate them?
Yes, I mean, we can relocate. We try to accommodate everyone to the best of our ability. That always needs to be kept in mind that a lot of people want speed cushions on their street, but they generally don't want them right in front of their house. They want them somewhere else on the street. So someone has to have that in front of their street, obviously. So we try to make sure that those people are very aware of what they're installing in front of their house.
And in the event that they do want those taken out, how do they go about reaching the city to get them relocated or moved from in front of their property?
They can contact 311, and then one of our staff will get in touch with them. There is, again, another application process they have to go through to do that, to get that process started.
Okay, Justin. Well, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I hope everyone at home found their questions answered. And again, just a reminder, if anyone does feel like they need speed humps or speed cushions in their neighborhood, go online and you'll find that application.
Yes, or call 311.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I hope you found this conversation informational. Thank you very much for joining us here on ABC-7 Extra. Have a great night.